Greetings, friends.
This wife is on fire. If Alicia Keys was still alive, that's the song she would be singing about Erica Kirk, who's taking over her husband's job.
It's Thursday, September 18th, and this is your Chapo. Look, as we hit record on this episode, as we begin to process the events of this week, I think one thing is clear, that we are living in a time of unprecedented threat to freedom of speech, the First Amendment, and many of our constitutionally protected rights as the fallout from the Charlie Kirk assassination continues. So I would like to make sure that on this episode that we will continue I want to make clear to you, the listeners, that we will continue our commitment to freedom of speech. We will not be cowed by any government, by any other podcasts, by any media figures, or you, the listeners, yourselves. So in support of our precious First Amendment rights while we still have them, we present to you today our review of the 1996 Steven Seagal movie, The Glimmerman. Joining me, of course, are Felix and Hesse for this August occasion.
Thank you so much for having me. I love Steven Seagal. I think it's crazy that was allowed to make so many movies. It's on par with me with like Jeffrey Epstein getting sent $200 million for no reason by everyone, by every billionaire.
Yeah, he's a lot like a fake movie star from like a forgotten GTA game.
Yeah,
like a guy where you have to like throw a guy into a jet turbine so this guy can be in a movie.
Yeah.
even though he's a terrible actor and like looks like shit. There's no redeeming qualities.
It reminds me of Wag the Dog when they get the guy who's going to be like the hero of the war, and it's Woody Harrelson, and he's a psychopath who like raped and murdered a nun. Well, we just got to use him now. We have no choice.
I mean, I didn't know what to expect going into this because, we used to, during Trump 1, we would make fun of people when they were like, oh my God, like we're living in the Glimmerman. The Glimmerman was a documentary. But now it's like, I like take back everything I said. Like those people were right. We are living in the Glimmerman.
This is sort of a Steven Seagal B-side. This is one of his This is still like the prime 90s era Seagal, not the like later 2000s era Seagal where all of his movies are financed by and filmed in Bulgaria. This is when he was like still doing movies produced by Warner Brothers. But I think this is an interesting movie because it's a forgotten Seagal movie. And I chose it because this was on the cusp, like a sort of a turning point, if you will, in his career. Well, this was after he blew all of the credibility he had in Hollywood by demanding a 40-minute monologue to be included at the end of On Deadly Ground, warning us about the degradation of our environment by the petroleum industry. He was silenced for that. This was also the year directly following him being fired from the film Executive Decision for, threatening to kill John Leguizamo if he didn't follow his orders as a member of his Navy SEAL unit.
He's so cool,
and lest we forget, this is also the same year this movie was released. Under Siege 2, Dark Territory did not do Boffo B.O. So we're left with The Glimmerman. And I think this is an important movie in the Steven Seagal canon of movies, because this is the first movie where he decides to full-on become Asian. It wasn't working for him as a white man in Hollywood. And this is the first movie. This is slightly before he's decided to become black. But like this is definite. This is the first full Asian Seagal role.
That is the thing that stood out to me the most, because in my memory, this is like a real Mandela effect thing. In my mind, this movie marks his first experimentation with becoming black. But he just sort of dips his toe in it. He doesn't dive in. But he does do that a little bit in this movie, but it's way more about him being Asian.
He says, he tells the guy, get your white ass out of here at one point.
Now get your ugly... Now, he says, it's like, imagine Steven Seagal's face looking at you and saying, now get your ugly white ass out of here and don't come back. And it's just like, what? Who's saying this? That would be like, you would expect that line to be in the mouth of Keenan Ivory Wayans, his co-star in this movie.
Yeah, I bet that was his line, and he went to the director and he's like, I think that should be my line. I
actually been saying that for a long motherfucking time. I mean, this movie really, this was my what Madeleines are to Proust, this movie is to me. Because there was this great period, like a 3-year period in the 90s, I would say from 95 to 98, where if you were a fat enough white man who wore like a weird enough jacket, you could just convince people you were like half Chinese without saying anything. That was like race was way more amorphous for 3 wonderful years during the end of the first and the beginning of the second Clinton administration. And then Obama started dividing us, and you can't do this anymore.
Yep. That's why Steven Seagal has to make movies in Eastern Europe, Eastern and Central Europe. It's because
the rules are different there.
Yeah.
He's the closest thing to a person of color that they've ever seen over there.
Well, they're just getting to that over there.
Yeah.
Like there was a big ceremony where they opened the first mall katana shop in Serbia recently. It was part of the Belt and Road Initiative.
It's funny that you mentioned Serbia, Felix, because a key plot point of this movie, and by key plot point I mean it's addressed once, dismissed, and never heard from again, involves selling chemical weapons to, quote, Serbian freedom fighters.
I really think that Warner Brothers like saw the dailies and was like, this whole sequence with the chemical weapons going off like downtown or something, and then him having to stop it. We got to cut that. We just got to end the movie right here because we are not spending any more money on this.
I mentioned the film Executive Decision, and like I remember like it's just like it's a great movie. It's a way better movie than it has any reason to be, and it's like way better than you remember it. And I think one of the reasons it's a good movie is because they kill Steven Seagal in the first 10 minutes of the movie. I remember seeing that movie in the theater for my birthday. And I had all my friends with me, and we were so excited to see a movie with Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal. And it's one of the most shocking movie moments of all time to me. Is when Steven Seagal just dies in like within like they dock a stealth fighter jet to a passenger airplane that's like, you know, crossing the Atlantic. And they like do a little port. They dock it on the bottom.
It's like in Armageddon, the bridge.
Yeah, Steven Seagal is just like, don't wait for me. The mission's too important, and closes the door, and then the plane the fighter jet explodes. That was mind-boggling to me. And basically that was all because nobody who worked on that movie could stomach working with Steven Seagal. And they were just like, it's easier to just kill you. We've changed the entire script because nobody in this movie can be in the same room with you.
I was watching an interview with Stephen Tobolowsky, who's in this movie.
Oh, okay, can we save that till we get to his character? That scene, because the anecdote he tells about Steven Seagal in this movie is so fucking funny. But I did think, speaking of Seagal's on-set behavior, I would like us to begin with Keenan Ivory Wayans' story about working on this movie.
Yes. Apparently Steven Seagal walked in one day and said, I just read the best damn script I've ever read in my life. And Keenan Ivory Wayans was like, who wrote it? And Steven Seagal was like, me.
He said he was crying. Yeah. He said Steven Seagal was in tears, and he said, what's wrong? And he said, I read the most beautiful story of all time. And it was the script. It was the script he wrote. I would give anything to read that script.
Yeah, do you think they made it, or do you think like this is like he's running out of cultural cachet in Hollywood? It's like he has nothing left. No one wants to. It's sitting on 100 like producers' desks. They're just like.
I feel like, I mean, when I first heard that story, I thought that might be what's that one where he's a Native American? Like, it's
On
an
Deadly
environmentalist movie.
On Deadly Ground, yeah.
But didn't that come out before?
That came out in 1994. That was that was like the last like good Steven Seagal movie.
I feel like that the one he wrote is like more insane than anything he's ever made. Like if it's comparable to anything he's made, it's probably like The Good Man, but like more sinister. It's like a good man, but the girl who works in the bar is like 14, and the movie's about him waiting until she turns 18.
It's called The Rapist or something.
Yeah. It's right. It's probably something. It's like about like a great man who's bullied into signing a settlement for something that he didn't do but would have been fine anyway if he did it.
It was executive decision. He rewrote it but put himself in it.
I mean, like, and as just an added detail to that story that Keenan Ivory Wayans related is that, like, this occurred after he was like 3 hours late for a shoot, and he would just show up on set like basically whenever he wanted, and he comes in and sits down next to Keenan, who's probably been there all day just trying to like get home, just like, oh God, got to do another scene with Steven Seagal. Shows up 3 hours late, and he's like, Keenan, I've been weeping all night. And he puts the script down. I just read the most brilliant screenplay I've ever read. Who wrote it? And he said, I did. Just imagine working with him. Imagine working with him.
I would quit right there. I quit. What do you want me to say? I quit.
I would give anything for him, for like, if I could like do, I don't know how I could make this happen, but like make it so Steven Seagal was born in like 1994 and he's a movie star. Like his rise begins now. Like he's in movies with like Austin Butler and shit.
Yeah.
I would give anything for him to like he has to post like Instagram stories.
Get your ugly twink ass out of here. I just realized this movie it's the blueprint of Rush Hour. It's a Chinese cop and a black cop. Steven Seagal reads the Rush Hour script. He tells his agent, "You got to get me this role, man. You got to get me this role."
He actually wrote the script for Rush Hour, and that's what he was sharing with Keenan Ivory Wayans. Okay, speaking of Steven Seagal being Asian, being Chinese, do you remember the part in this movie where it's like the two bad guys, Bob Gunton and Brian Cox? And then like Bob Gunton's like, who the hell is this guy? And Brian Cox says, I found him in Vietnam. And I know they're referring to the war, but like, I like that he's like, I found a Vietnamese guy. Where did you find him? In Vietnam. And then later Thailand, which he actually does say.
That's so funny. Vietnam and then later Thailand. I like the title of this movie really sounds like it had a normal title and then they translated it into Urdu and then into Chinese and then back into English.
Well, do you remember from this movie, because like, in the same scene where Brian Cox like unveils their evil plan, he gives some background about Steven Seagal's character, and he's just like, suffice to say, among the men he was hunting, he was known as the Glimmerman. And do you remember the explanation for why he's called the Glimmerman?
It's so stupid.
It's so it's like he goes,
It's beautiful.
For the men the CIA had him hunting, he was known only as the Glimmerman. And then like you could see Bob Gunton kind of like working the screenplay over in his head and being like, okay, why the fuck do they call him that? And then Brian Cox is like, because you'd be in the jungle at night, it's dark, you can't see anything, and then just a glimmer, and then you're dead. And it's just like, well, how do you get the nickname? Everyone has been dead. Yeah.
What is the glimmer? Like his earrings?
His Tibetan prayer beads.
Among the men he was hunting, he was called the faggot. They call him the white Chinese guy.
I'm also Latino.
Yeah. He does have a little Latin flair in this movie also.
That is a huge what if. If he like after experimenting with Chinese and Native American, if he'd become a cholo.
Yeah, oh my god, that would be so cool. I bet there is at least one movie where he is a cholo. I mean, he has to have done that at one point.
My name's Glimmer Alvarez. Como se dice Glimmer?
What if in the universe where he becomes a cholo and like makes his insane ripoff of American Me, That's like that's like the best version of our world. Like Paul Wellstone becomes president. Like 9/11 never happens.
Felix, if Steven Seagal had made his version of American Me, I guarantee you more people would have been murdered as a result of the release of the movie. Fun fact about the Edward James Olmos movie, American Me. You can look it up. But yeah, let's get into the film itself. The Glimmerman from 1996, directed by John Gray. There's a name that rings out. Basically, as the movie opens up, a serial killer is stalking the city of Los Angeles. We see like nighttime streets. We see like in the credits, we see flashes of grisly crime scene photos.
We see glimmers, if you will.
Yeah.
A little foreshadowing.
And then we're smack in the middle of like, a Los Angeles police precinct. And we meet Detective Jim Campbell, played by Keenan Ivory Wayans. And it's a typical police precinct. There's a beehive of activity. There are cops eating donuts, and they're like, "Hey, if I, Keenan Ivory Wayans says to a cop eating a donut, "Why don't you just try crack, man?" And then the typical type of banter that takes place among homicide cops. So then,
yeah, but a lot worse than the usual stuff you would usually hear.
They're like, "Hey, we got the files on the Encino murders," and then Campbell's like, "Yeah, okay, I got it." And then he walks into his office and meets Lieutenant Jack Cole, played by Steven Seagal, and he says, "Hello, I'm Lieutenant Cole. Me and my kimono have been assigned to the case."
My name's Lao Chi.
Can I just point out, he wears the jacket that Steven Seagal wears in most of this movie. It got a lot of circulation in the 2017, 2018 when people pointed out that Hillary Clinton had started wearing it. And I just have to say, Steven Seagal was a true innovator in another thing that started in the 90s. But unlike, becoming so fat that you can become racially amorphous, it still goes on to this day. And that is adopting a jacket once you break past a certain BMI. As someone who has routinely just I enjoy doubling my BMI and then getting back down. I've done it so many times in my life. A jacket is a fat guy's best friend.
Yeah.
You just need to wear that for the entire time you're fat, and it creates an air of mystery around you. No one knows what could be under there.
Yeah,
and the jacket itself it's a very Asian jacket. I don't know how else to describe it. It's an Asian jacket. It's sort of glimmery, if you will, with Asian patterns and calligraphy. And he's like, "It's fall. I can't wait to start dressing." I love wearing layers.
The evil advisor to the emperor in The Last Samurai. This is the jacket he would wear when he's off work.
Yeah.
It's his version of FUBU.
He dresses like the maitre d' at PF Chang's, basically, throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Except for one scene where he's like, hostage situation. Time to get out my hostage jacket. And then he puts on a snakeskin jacket for one scene. It's amazing. And my God, is he a good hostage negotiator? He really it's the hostage scene. I'm sorry to jump ahead.
No,
but
please.
The hostage scene is if you do the opening of Detroit Become Human, but if you press all the wrong options except the last one. Press O to enter the room with your gun pointed at him.
This room has a lot of the same feeling of like a bungled QuickTime event where you're like. All I'm thinking of now is how good a David Cage video game with Steven Seagal would be.
Yeah, it's just white, Native American, Chinese, black, floating around.
The only game where you're always in bullet time.
Just slow, very slow.
You run. Your stamina bar goes to half when you stand up from a chair.
Oh man, that is such a good idea for a challenge run for the Phantom Pain or something.
Yeah.
Do the Steven Seagal challenge where you have to try to beat the game without ever standing up.
Yeah, you have to be.
No, I was gonna say it's like the
Oh
Steven
my
Seagal challenge run where you don't do any stealth. You just walk around. You just walk into rooms.
You walk up to
someone
people and you
did-
say
someone
violence
did
isn't
that.
violence isn't the answer, but it's the question, and then you kill him.
So like I said, there's a serial killer on the loose in Los Angeles. Lieutenant Cole has just been reassigned from the Henaway Bureau to Los Angeles, and it says like he's like, listen, the way I like to work is I just like to solve the case. I don't care who gets the credit. And they're like, okay, well, the serial killer here is targeting families. It's like very kind of like Manhunter style, Tooth Fairy style. Like he comes into your room at night, shoots you both in the head, and then crucifies you on the wall of your house. Like the husband and wife, he like nails you to a wall after shooting you in the head.
Yeah,
And-
it gives you crown of thorns.
Yeah, and he's killing families. So the LAPD have dubbed him the Family Guy Killer. And he's doing it because of violence in movies and sex on TV.
Steven Seagal at one point says, "Where are those good old fashioned values on which we used to rely?"
And his first day on the job with his new partner, Keenan Ivory Wayans, they go to the crime scene of one of these recently murdered families. And it's a couple who have been killed in a motel and nailed to the wall. But Detective Jack Cole, he notices that there's something wrong, and he's like, "There's something off about this. This ain't the same, Jim." So
And
like,
he never really says what it is. That he just detects wrong about it. I guess they're in a
something off.
motel.
Yeah. Usually families are in homes.
Yeah.
Usually if you're betraying your family, you're in a motel. So obviously he can see that there's something off about this crime scene. It looks a little too staged. And what is a nice married couple doing in a motel? So like they stay at the crime scene for all of maybe 10 seconds, and then they just move on, and then they're like in the car and they hear about a hostage situation taking place at a local high school. And then we get a great interaction with Keenan Ivory Wayans and Steven Seagal, where they're like, they get over the police radio. They're like, we have a kid threatening to kill himself at high school. And then Steven Seagal's like, 10-4, we're en route to the scene. And then Keenan Ivory Wayans like, what are you doing, man? We're homicide cops, not suicide cops. Like if someone pushes them off the building, then we'll show up. And then Steven Seagal's like, yeah, but I kind of just think you got to have compassion for people who are murdered, people who are going to be murdered, people who are going to die, people who are dying. It's all part of our job. So they head to the high school, and this is where we get to the great hostage scene. It's like this kid is taken his class hostage, and he's holding them at gunpoint. And then he's like, if the SWAT team comes up, they're just gonna kill this little bro. I'm not gonna let that happen.
They ain't finna kill the Neff on our block. I used to give him a Jefferson and tell him run to the Coney store.
One child policy. One child dead, that is.
Man, you getting so motherfucking big. I can't believe you survived the opium wars that we was all about.
And so they're like, he's like, I'll quarterback this hostage negotiation. We don't need to wait for the SWAT team or the negotiators or anything. And he does this ingeniously by using the school's PA system to talk to the hostage taker. And he's like,
Yeah, but from
Johnny,
5 steps from the door.
yeah, and he's
Also,
like, Johnny, this is your principal speaking. I need you to go on over to the window and take a gander outside. You go see a large man in a kimono looking back at you. And then when Johnny goes to the window and looks out the window, Steven Seagal just walks into the classroom with a gun pointed at him. And he's like, "I'm sorry, Johnny, I have to do this, but I don't want to kill you."
Yeah. I just have to escalate things a little bit.
I think if you got together like a group of board certified psychologists, like not Dr. Drew, but like real ones, they would independently all conclude that this is the single worst thing you could show a teenager experiencing a mental health crisis.
You say that, Felix, but I'm fairly certain that this scene portraying Steven Seagal's disarming of a hostage taker and brief negotiation with a hostage taker is taught in courses at Quantico about how to diffuse hostage situations.
Yes. Imagine, here's the thing. I know he's the villain, it turns out, which isn't a big surprise, but imagine being that kid's father, and this man walks up to you. He's fat. He has a ponytail. He's wearing prayer beads, and he has a snakeskin jacket on. And he says his gun's still in his hand. He hasn't put it away yet. He's like, I went in there. I saved your motherfucking son.
I Ching once said that life is like a great road. I consider myself a crossing guard.
I saved your son's white ass.
Man.
And the way in which he ends this hostage situation is so funny because basically he gets the kid to stand by the window, and then while the kid is still holding a gun, like walks very slowly towards him, and is like, I'm gonna have to do this, Johnny. I don't want to. And then he basically tackles him through a window on like the third or fourth floor of a building, tackles him through a window with enough force to carry both his and the high school student's body probably 10 or 15 yards across an alley into another window. And this is the first of probably a dozen people getting thrown or kicked through windows in this movie. But like it, I know it's a movie, but like you can see him defy physics. Like if he had tackled that kid through a window, they would have just hit the pavement. Like they would have traveled a couple feet and hit the pavement. This is like, it was a long gap between these buildings. They're like two rows of parked cars that he clears, and then he's just like, oh man. And he's like, the guy's like telling his girlfriend, he's like, I love you, Suzanne. And he's like, I love you too, man.
Yeah, he's like, I love you too. And then after a second, he goes, I hate this job.
Yeah.
What? If he dived with that kid out the window, it would be like in the video game Beam NG when you turn it up to sun gravity while the car's in the air. It would just like literally like their body parts would be miles. Like you would have to go miles away to find the like edge of the blood splatter.
So yeah, he saves this young man's life by fatly jumping through a window with him, and through two windows, in fact, by fatly jumping through two windows with the school shooter. Then we have the kid's stepdad shows up at the crime scene, and the stepfather is played by Bob Gunton, who, like, if you see his face in a movie, he's just like, he's the villain because he basically always plays bad guys. You probably most remember him as the warden from The Shawshank Redemption, but one of those classic character actors, and he's like, Detective Cole, I just want to thank you for saving my boy's life. Like if there's anything I can do for you, any favor that you need, like I hope you won't hesitate to call. And Steven Seagal's like, I don't do favors. I do the law, or I don't know, something like that. But he brushes the dad off because he's like, you can tell how villainous he looks. And then Bob Gunton sends his like head of security to the police precinct to like pressure Seagal to like testify that the son is not guilty by reason of mental illness. And he's like, the one problem with that is I don't think he's insane, and I don't do favors for people. And they're like, all right, well, Mr. Gunton, I think his name is Mr. Deverell in this movie. He's like, he's a very powerful man. He can help or hurt a career. And Steven Seagal's like, I don't care about a career. I don't know. But so he's getting pressure from the father, and the father is like sort of shady head of security to sort of cover up this incident. And that's when he says, "Now get your ugly white ass out of here and don't come back." That's what he says to the other villain, the heavy, the thug, the security guard.
Yeah. My question during this scene was this the like evil head of security guys? Was this his first day on the job? You don't pressure the cop in a kimono over what your son is charged with. Like, you talk to the DA
in the police station too.
No wonder they get. I mean, sorry, spoiler alert. No wonder they get foiled by the stupid ass Glimmerman. They suck at this. What if the DA is even fatter and more pretending to be Pan-Asian?
The DA,
like they try to lean on the DA, and he's in a pagoda.
The DA's dressed like the Chinese character in Dragon Ball Z. Like he
looks like a Billiken.
Yeah. But I also love in this scene when he's talking to the DA guy, and like the guy's or not the DA guy, the security guy, and he's like, can't you just have some compassion for this kid? He's like, I don't give a fuck about this kid. It's literally directly the opposite of what he was saying in the car.
I'm sorry. I have oppositional defiant disorder.
There are so many great moments like that movie where like you see a scene with Seagal and he says something pseudo philosophical, and then in the next scene he directly like violates his own advice. Like towards the end of the movie, him and Keenan Ivory Wayans are like setting up the bad guys, and Keenan Ivory Wayans is like, "So what are we gonna do, man? I think we should just like go arrest them." And Steven Seagal's like, "It brings to mind the great Persian tacticians and generals who wanted to teach their young warriors about strategy and invented a game called chess."
Yeah. And then they called the bad guys and they're like, meet us at this hotel room.
And then he says like, the young warriors, they want to fight. The old warrior, he's patient. He waits till the enemy boxes himself in a corner and then exposes himself. And then like, then he makes his move. And then like 5 minutes later in the movie, they're like, all the bad guys are in a hotel room, like 10 guys with guns, all pointing guns at each other. And Keenan Ivory Wayans is like, do you think we should just, do you think we should like wait and not just kick down the door in this room and jump inside not knowing how many men are there or if they're armed? And Seagal's like, yeah. And then just kicks down the door and walks into like a gunfight.
It's so cool. But after the security guard scene, we get the autopsy scene in which the autopsy technician notices that the victim has bone cancer, but doesn't notice that she has breast implants.
Yeah.
And of course, it takes the sharp eye of Steven Seagal to notice. He's like, those ain't real.
Well, that's a sapiosexual coroner.
Yeah.
He just doesn't notice stuff like that.
Yeah. Another fascinating detail about this scene is that Seagal is like, he takes one look at the dead body and he's like, I'm looking at her bone structure. She's probably Russian, most likely Georgian.
I completely
and it's like,
forgot.
Georgian and Russian are like two different. They're two different countries, but like they're two different ethnicities. So he's like, she's the Georgian kind of Russian. I can tell from her bone structure. So he does phrenology to this corpse.
I love that too, because it's like there's an obligatory every movie like this where it's like a normal cop and then like a karate cop. There's a scene where like the normal cop will go, "You can't partner me with this guy. He just hit a wooden dummy so fast that he lit it on fire." Like Keenan Ivory Wayans describes this as like one of his skills, that he can like racially identify people like just on like within seconds. And it's like, are we supposed to believe that he learned that during when he was an assassin, or is that just like, or is that or is that just like under the umbrella of like Asian stuff?
Yeah.
Like we think that like an Asian guy would be able to do that.
I'm losing my mind imagining him looking at the body and being like, she's Chinese. Yeah. Walking into the next crime scene, we got another Chinese couple killed.
That would be such a good movie. It would be like the gag from 30 Rock where you see the world through Kenneth's eyes.
Yeah.
But you see it through his eyes. Just everyone's like a Chinese version of themselves.
Yeah.
or like he comes in, they've completed the autopsy and somehow not noticed that the woman had breast implants, and he's like, I think there's one thing else that you failed to notice. And like Keenan Ivory Wayans and the coroner are like baffled. They're like, but what? And he goes, she's white. And then they're like, fuck, that's the key to everything. They're like, oh wait, I checked black on the medical forums here.
If they turn this into a series, the season finale would be like, it's his toughest case yet. This week, guest starring Woe Vicky as the cadaver. This is a hard motherfucking case.
Steven Seagal turned Chinese because he got touched on. Seafood touched me one too many times.
There was a great Greek tactician. One day they asked him, how did you win so many wars with the 300? He said, because I got touched on so many damn times.
Oh my god.
Someone does need to put Will Vicky in her movie, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
But,
I don't like
she's
everything-
great.
Safdie brothers, maybe.
Yeah.
We were laughing about how like Nancy Mace is like a grown up Woah
Yeah.
Vicky. I mean, Woah Vicky is like 39 now. You know, I'm 47, so I'm not calling her old, but it just time flies. But like Woah Vicky she doesn't even qualify as like a freak or an oddity in America anymore. She should just like be a senator.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
She should be the president, honestly.
Yeah.
They go to the autopsy, and then like Steven Seagal's like, anything else you notice about the body? And Keenan Ivory Wayans is like, yeah, she's got nice tits. And then Steven Seagal goes, yeah, a little too nice. And then he takes a scalpel and it like opens up her, like takes out her breast implant, and it's like, better run the medical device number on that. And then it's just like a coroner in Los Angeles. Like how many people come across his slab that have breast implants in the year 1996?
Yeah,
and he's just
yeah.
like
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, that's how we can identify the body. So
You just see him crying later, and he's like, I just don't believe that people would lie like that.
I bet you $1 million that was originally the coroner was going to do that, but Steven Seagal was like, I think my guy would probably know about that.
Yeah. That is, and it's probably because Seagal, like, he thinks that's like one of his abilities, like in real life. He's like, I can always tell when breasts are fake.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my God. And then the next scene, Seagal takes Keenan Ivory Wayans to his hood to introduce him to the folks.
Yeah.
He gives him a pass.
Awesome.
He gives him this is my favorite scene in the movie. He gets the Chinese pass to go to like a Chinese medicine store. and I love this scene because Seagal walks in with Keenan Ivory Wayans, and it's like one of those like traditional like Chinese medicine store where they sell all kinds of like weird powders and shit like that. And he comes in and like does the praying hands, and he bows and he goes Sifu, and then just speaks like basically a bunch of unintelligible non-Chinese to him. Where he's like Bonzo Ma, like it's like old man. It's just like this old man and his wife are smiling at him, and then like at this point like Keenan Ivory Wayans is like. He suggests, he says, you should take some deer antler. It's good for masculinity. And Keenan Ivory Wayans is like, I have to credit Keenan Ivory Wayans in this movie because like he is trying as hard as possible to be the comic relief, and there's just nothing going on. There's nothing there for him to do.
Absolutely
You
nothing.
know, like-
It's a black hole.
Like he looks at a jar of like dead insects, and he's like, damn, they're selling roaches. Like I'm in the wrong business. I could make money without ever leaving my apartment. And it's just like that just lands there. Like that's like a turd.
Yeah.
Like it's just he's got nothing to go off of with his acting partner.
It's like this is my favorite type of script where it was written by like a 79-year-old Jewish guy writing a black character. So like half of his lines in this movie are like, man, black people don't fuck with incense. Like these bizarre assertions that are meant to be comedic. And Steven Seagal is like not helping him at all because he probably has like a rule at this point where he's like, I think it demystifies my character if I laugh at stuff.
Yeah. And like it really feels every single joke. It feels like it's take 129 and Keenan Ivory Wayans is like just wants to go home. And it's like it's exhausting.
And we got the height of comedy in this movie is that like Keenan Ivory Wayans, Lieutenant Campbell, he sneezes a couple of times, and then Steven Seagal's like, oh, I got some perfect ancient Chinese medicine to clear that right up. And he gives him like a little sack of powder, and he's like, put this under your tongue, which Keenan Ivory Wayans, who's like grossed and weirded out by everything in this store, immediately does it without question.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, this tastes terrible. What is it? And he's like, it's just a little powdered deer penis. And then he's just like, and then that's it. That's the whole scene. They leave the Chinese medicine shop, never come back. It's never referenced again, except at the very end of the movie, when it's the last line of the movie, references deer penis again.
Yeah.
It's just a little bonding moment between them.
Yeah, and you know Steven Seagal is like, I got put Keenan onto the right after. Imagine after the camera cuts, and he's like, this stuff that shit really does work, you know. We gotta use real powdered deer penis, or else it's not gonna be authentic.
After the deer penis scene, That's when I got my idea for a reboot of Laurel and Hardy.
You know how apparently Tom Cruise for a while there, like on the sets of his movies, would have like Scientologists with like e-meters there to give like free consulting to people on long days of work to help them, to help them with Scientology. I'm imagining Seagal does that, but there's just like an old Chinese man with deer penis powder that he makes everyone take. Because like they're like, see, Seagal's 5 hours late. Like they're going crazy. Like none of us are gonna get home today. And then it's just like, have some deer penis, you'll feel better.
Yeah, Seagal's equivalent to a religious advisor is like the guy that sold Homer Simpson the monkey's paw in that episode. It's like they leave the Chinese medicine store, and here's another great moment in this movie where, like, okay, he's doing his Tibetan prayer beads. He explains that he uses the Tibetan prayer beads to, quote, calm my mind and purify my thoughts. And then they say, okay, an informant is called in with info on the Family Guy killer, and they're like, okay, let's go check that out. On the way to talking to this informant, they see a couple guys breaking into a car, and Steven Seagal is like, hey, why don't we stop here and solve this crime? And Keenan Ivory Wayne's like, wait, like, no, I thought we're on this other case. And he's like, hey, we're cops. So they go into this like parking garage and like accost these three guys who are breaking into a car. And then but by failing to secure the crime scene, they do not notice that there are like five other guys, like unbeknownst to them, who just walk out from behind a corner armed with guns. And they're like, they're Russian mafia guys. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna kill you now. And Steven Seagal's like, I don't like the sound of that, like he's like, hey,
he's like, I can't fight.
No, this is where he goes, oh, it's a shame I can't fight. And Keenan Ivory Wayne's like, damn, I wish you told me that earlier. He's like, I can't. It's against my religion. I'm a Buddhist. He says that.
And then he slits their throats 1 second later.
He says that. And this is like I remembered almost nothing about this movie, save for the scene where he cuts four guys' throats with a credit card that has a razor inside of it. And he does that. He's got four guys all pointing guns at him at point blank range. And then he's like, How about I pay you some money not to kill me? I got lots of money right here in my pocket. Got thousands of dollars here in my wallet. I'm gonna reach behind me slowly, take out my wallet. And he takes out the wallet. And he's like, I don't have cash right now, but maybe you'd like plastic. And he takes a credit card out of his wallet and like squeezes it, and a razor blade comes out of it. And then he just very quickly slices four guys' throats all at the same time.
Yeah, like he's swiping it at the store, basically, but like on their necks.
This is the type of thing you think of literally at age 5. Like, by the time you turn 6, you're like, wait, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense.
So, like, a fight ensues, and of course they prevail. But right before the fight happens, like, he says, I can't fight. I'm a Buddhist. It's against my religion. And then the Russian mafia guys are like, they'll be like, oh, you're such a tough guy. Like, how do you like it now with gun in your face?
Okay, tough guy. What race are we?
Chinese.
And then there's a great moment where Steven Seagal says, my friend, he's a little bit country, but I'm a little bit rock and roll. And then there's a great moment, the Russian thug looks at him and goes, what does that mean? And I said the exact same thing. It's just like, I was like, wait, what this cool little action moment. My friend's a little bit country, but I'm a little bit rock and roll. I was just like, what the fuck? That's just a song. Like, that's something the Osmonds did.
And
like, that's not cool. That's not cool. That's not a zinger you can do before beating someone up.
Yeah. I hope you like seafood, because I'm a rock lobster.
No, I mean, and also
people.
My favorite line in this scene is when they first arrive, before the Russian mob sneaks up on them by just stepping out of a smaller parking garage within the parking garage that they're in. They have their guns pointed at these guys, and they have a screwdriver, and he says, "You got a screwdriver? We got guns. Looks like you brought a screwdriver to a gunfight." Like, what? Is that a cool line in his mind?
That line was awesome.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So you'll remember that just a few moments earlier in my review of this movie, they ended up in the parking garage credit card, little bit rock and roll, little bit country fight scene, because they said that they were on the way to meet with an informant who had important information with them about the Family Guy killer. Now is the point where I reveal that nothing becomes. They never meet with that informant.
Yeah. But the parking
Family Guy
garage
killer does strike again, and they totally forget about the informant that had information, and they go to another crime scene.
I feel like, but the parking garage also is tied into the Family Guy killings. It's tied into the whole thing that they're investigating, and I feel like whoever wrote this movie was like read a Raymond Chandler novel or something, and was like, oh, there's two separate cases, and then at the end it turns out they're all one case. And in this movie, the two cases are the Family Guy murderer and three guys breaking into a car in a parking lot.
So they show up to another murder scene. This one is in like a very nice house. It appears that the Family Guy killer has struck again. But Steven Seagal notices that there's something off about this murder scene too. And you can tell, he doesn't say anything to anyone, but you can tell there's something off because he's making a face that looks like he's having trouble moving his bowels. He does the bitter beer face.
Yeah, he does the same face that he does in every single other moment of the movie. And Keenan Ivory Wayans is like, are you okay? And it's like, you should have asked him that hours ago when he started making that face when you first met him.
That should have been the first thing you ever said to him.
Yeah, are you okay?
Why are you dressed like this? Are you okay?
Yeah. Are you sure you're a police officer?
So they're the lead investigators of this case. They show up to the crime scene and once again spend all of 30 seconds there before it's just on to another scene. And then we get this baffling scene where like Seagal, like he comes home and is greeted by a woman in his house. And I was just like, wait a second, who's this woman? Is it his wife? But then he starts talking to this woman and he's like, it's been a bad day at work. I gotta tell my kids their mother's dead. And I'm like, wait, what, like the woman, I thought you were the kid's mother, but no, this was baffling to me because I assumed, because like, I was like, hold on a second. The murder victim is his ex-wife. And then I'm like, okay, well, does he live with his sister now? No, in the movie, apparently in earlier versions of this movie before it was edited, Steven Seagal's current wife was a character. But she's in one scene in this movie where I thought she was his sister. And then he's like, my God, I got to tell my kids that their mother's dead.
And we never see his kids at all.
We see his kids. We see a scene shot through a pane of glass as he goes outside and they're playing in the backyard. And we see him kneel down and sort of put his hands on their shoulders. But we don't see any dialogue. We never hear from the kids again. We're just going to take it as read that this was devastating for them.
They instantly killed themselves. I cannot think of anyone worse to break that news to a child or really anyone. Like if I as a little kid, if my parents like died horribly or like anyone in my family, I would rather have like JD Vance inform me.
Yeah.
I would rather have him be like, your mother is ontologically not alive than like this fucking idiot wearing like dining tapestry from the 1970s.
Yeah.
Going, I got bad news. Someone snatched your mother's birthday.
And then they're like, what do you mean? It was mom's birthday last week. And he's like, you're not hearing what I'm saying to you, little bro. She's not coming home.
Your mom is probably going to get reincarnated as something cool like a falcon or an eagle. Don't worry.
They're like, so when are we going to see mom again? You're not. The ops got her.
I got bad news, shawty. Someone slimed your mother out.
Here's a picture of the crime scene just to make you know it's real. She's like crucified, nailed to the wall.
Yeah, she was nailed to the fucking wall.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was so... I had the same problem you had where when he's in that woman's cooking dinner and this lumbering idiot is in her kitchen like...
I thought it was a home invasion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she was a suspect or something.
She's like cutting celery and he's like, every father fears the day where he has to tell their kids that they're orphans. she's like so sympathetic.
and at no point in this
never
movie,
explained who the fuck she is.
It has not been established at any point in this movie that he's married, was ever married, or has 2 children. And you're just sort of like, and then when he walks into the house, you're like, oh, this is his wife. And then the first thing he says to him is like, the mother of my kids is dead. And it's just like, it creates this like an Escher drawing in my mind that I can't get out of.
It's so cool.
Like a logic bomb in with a robot. It's just like I just shut down. It's like the old sort of logic problem intended to display innately misogynistic views, where it's just like a child is rushed to the hospital, like he's on the operating table and the doctor says, I can't operate on this child, he's my son. What explain that? It's like that, but in movie script form, and it doesn't make sense.
Oh my god, he's so cool.
So at this point, Keenan, they find a print at the crime scene, and it's Steven Seagal's print. So it's like he's now under suspicion for the Family Guy killings.
But they don't tell him, and they keep him on the case.
I know. It's great. And like, okay, that's another thing. He walks into this crime scene and immediately sees his ex-wife and her current husband shot in the head and crucified on the wall of their home. At that point, if you're the lead investigator on the case, I think it's of dire importance that you disclose that the victim is your ex-wife. But he just sort of, he grimaces and then just walks out of the house and goes on with his day and doesn't tell anyone.
He's like, if they knew my Chinese ass was the Glimmerman, they would think I did this shit.
So he somehow is still on the case. But like then he reaches out to a figure from his past. Someone from the CIA, and we know that because he's smoking a cigar and ashing it in a CIA ashtray in his office. That's how you know it's the CIA. And the CIA guy is played by another great actor of, known for playing villains, a great character actor. It's Brian Cox, of course. You know all of him as Logan Roy from Succession, or Hannibal Lecter from Manhunter.
Or he also plays a CIA guy in a ton of movies, like The Bourne Identity,
The
Long Kiss Goodnight.
Just a great villainous guy. And then once again, talk about sort of culturally, racially, and ethnically ambiguous. It took me to the very end of this movie when someone mentions, they're like, yeah, like short guy, beard, had a southern accent, and they're referring to Brian Cox's character, and I was like, wait, stop. Wait, what? At no point in this movie did Brian Cox have a southern accent. And then in the next scene with Brian Cox, where they kidnap him, he's wearing a Colonel Sanders, he's dressed like Colonel Sanders. He's got a fucking string tie on, and he's like I do declare, Mr. Cole.
I say, you gotta let me go.
It's like, he's saying this in his like thick Scottish accent.
If you let me go, I will establish a treaty between the Confederate States of America and Siam.
The scene where he meets with Brian Cox is maybe my favorite scene in the entire movie, because it's Steven Seagal walks into an Italian restaurant.
An Italian restaurant that looks like a Chinese restaurant.
Yes, literally, yes. And it starts punches out a random guy, and then walks into Brian Cox's office or his room in the back of the restaurant, and he's like, Brian Cox is like, good to see you, old friend, and Steven Seagal's like, shut your damn ass up. Because Steven Seagal's like, we gotta change this scene. This is the bad guy. And they're like, oh,
I'm gonna sit your 5 yen ass down and make change.
Steven, your character doesn't know that's the bad guy. And he's like, yeah, he does. Trust me.
So, the scene where and by the way, I don't know if you noticed in this scene, the restaurant is referred to by 2 different names in this scene.
Yeah, I mean, if I thought anything in this movie was intentional, it would probably be my favorite movie ever made. Because it's like the only real movie I've ever seen that reminds me of the narrative style of Dan Quinn. Where just people and events and relationships just come in and out of existence. It's very, I always say Dan Quinn is a true heir to Pynchon. But it also, I guess a lot of things remind me of this game, but it also reminds me of The Phantom Pain, which is famously a game with an where your player character is an unreliable narrator because he got his brain scrambled by exploding in a helicopter. And this feels more like The Phantom Pain than any movie I've ever seen. Even the movies that like The Phantom Pain just completely copy scenes from.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, it would be funny if this movie had a Shutter Island style ending where they're like a bunch of doctors come out and they're like, we just wanted to show you how ridiculous this all is. And he's like, you mind if I pay with that in card? Takes out the credit card. They're like, no, put it away.
Like Brian Cox is like his old CIA handler, and like he busts in on him having a private lunch, and he's like. And he begins to like spin his theory of what's going on with the case, which is that there is a serial killer, the Family Guy killer, but the last two killings, the two crime scenes we've been at, have been the work of a pro and not a serial killer who's like taking out his targets and then using the MO of the serial killer to like cover his tracks. And he's like, I think you know who that pro may be, to Brian Cox. And he's like, don't know what you're talking about. Bye. And then as he leaves, it's unclear whether these are Brian Cox's minions or just fellow diners, patrons of this restaurant.
Absolutely unexplained.
Yeah.
It could not be explained less.
And he does his Aikido to one guy, like to get into the private lunch. And then as he's leaving, the guy comes up to him and he's like, if you ever do that to me again, I'll fucking kill you. And all your Chinese Mushu potions won't help you.
He literally does say that, yeah.
He says, all your Chinese Mushu potions won't help you. And he's like,
that's what you think. Mushu is for dessert, by the
way. No, he says, it's funny you say that because I got an excellent potion that'll help with that bruise on your head. And the guy's like, what bruise on my head? And he's like, this one. And then he punches him and destroys the restaurant. And then when he comes into the restaurant and beats up the maitre d', like he's on the phone, like trying to do a reservation, and the name of the restaurant is like Marcello's or something. And then as Seagal leaves, the phone at the hostess, the maitre d's like little area rings, and he picks it up and he's like, "Hello, this is Linto's." No, sorry, you can't have a reservation. They're closed for renovation. And it just walks out.
If that was intentional, I would be like, this is the best fucking movie ever made. Like this is awesome.
It's amazing too, because like I love, like, as he's beating these guys up, it's one step removed from him like grabbing a bottle of wine and like throwing it out the window to break the window. Like he's just destroying the restaurant for absolutely no reason. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Now Steven Seagal, we know he is a master of Aikido, and he's got a very specific and I would describe as somewhat sedate fighting style, but that is the art of Aikido. It's about it's about using the energy, strength, and vitality of your opponent against them, and sort of using your own lethargy and lack of flexibility. That becomes an advantage. But like Hessa and Felix, I wonder if you noticed this, like. There's a couple scenes in this movie where Seagal fights guys, and like usually he's like grabbing people's limbs and like breaking their arm, or like they go to kick him and he like just sort of grabs their body and throws them. He does a lot of like hip tosses and like twisting people's arms around. That's like a typical Steven Seagal style fight. But there's a lot of scenes in this movie where like I can only describe it as him throwing hands with another man. And they're both sort of like rapidly throwing fists at each other. And the only thing I can really compare it to is when my cats get in a fight. You know that, like when cats fight, and they're like they'll like one of them will like put their paw up very high and just kind of hold it there over the other cat, and then in rapid succession, it'll just go bat 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 like really quickly at the other one. That's how I kind of describe the fighting in this movie.
Yeah, I mean the thing about punching is. You don't want to involve your legs or your core at all.
No, all your power comes from your hand.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like the scene that where he goes, it would help with that bruise on your forehead is great because he punches the guy directly in the forehead, which is like the exact one place on the head you're not supposed to punch someone boxing, because it's like it's
the hardest part of your skull.
The hardest part of the skull. Worst chance of knocking someone out by just punching them directly in their giant forehead. But I don't know. I guess he invented a Chinese way of doing it. Or if it's an arm punch, it's better. It transfers the energy better or whatever.
Well, as he's destroying a restaurant, Keenan Ivory Wayans is doing actual police work, and I guess it's the informant that they were originally going to see, or maybe just another informant. But I believe she's a prison art therapist, and she's recognized the sort of childish doodles on the walls of these houses done by the Family Guy killer, and I believe she's played by Nadine from Twin Peaks. And then she's I recognize. I recognize the art style, the artistic style from one of my students, and he was my greatest student at the prison art class, and and this is where Stephen Tobolowsky's character is introduced, and you think this would be a major moment because he is indeed the Family Guy killer.
Yeah. And also, the art style is stick figures, and she's "This is the best. This guy's the best artist in the prison." When he was here, it's oh my god, what the hell?
So I don't want to have too much setup for this scene because it really doesn't matter and it goes nowhere. But basically, Steven Seagal he's oh, the killer's Catholic, so there's a Catholic church in the neighborhood. I'll just go stake that out.
Yeah, 9 blocks from his house, which is so funny. He's find me every church within a 9-block radius. It's why 9 blocks? You're in L.A. It's probably further than that. You dumbass.
So
he probably thinks that's such an insane distance for someone to walk that it shows his character's dedication.
He's like Eric Erickson.
Yeah.
So Stephen Tobolowsky, another great American character actor, another one of those great that guys in movies who you might remember most as County Commissioner from Yankton in Deadwood. But Stephen Tobolowsky, he sees Seagal and he's oh, I'm done for. The Chinese Grim Reaper has come to take me. And he the church lets out, and then the serial killer, the Family Guy, runs back in and he takes the priest hostage. And now this is where we get to what I have to talk about is the anecdote Stephen Tobolowsky tells about working on this scene with Steven Seagal. And it's one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. So Tobolowsky says that this was actually on the first day of shooting this movie. They do this scene. And he had never he meets Steven Seagal on set. He had never met him before. And they're only in this one scene together. But before he shows up, before they do the scene, the director comes up to him and he says, "Steven, if Steven tries to talk to you, or he's going to try to engage you about this scene and seek your input, please don't let him talk to you. Don't give him an inch." And apparently what was going on is that on day 1 of filming of this movie, Steven Seagal had decided unilaterally, after being contracted to to be in this movie and read the script presumably, he's I think it's wrong that my character kills people. I don't want to kill people. And he says, I don't want I think it's wrong to have violence in movies, and that for my own spiritual beliefs, I think it's bad that my character kill people in this movie.
But I'll do it.
No,
I'll do it.
And as you might imagine, Warner Brothers was furious. They were
why?
They were okay, we'll just do some light alteration to the script. We'll do that sort of as we go. And I think that's why we get the scene where Seagal's character is I can't fight people. I'm a Buddhist, and then kills 4 people. So in the scene, Stephen Tobolowsky takes a priest hostage and has a gun to his head. And then in the movie, what we see is that Seagal basically is just I'm afraid you're going to need to let me talk to that priest. And then Tobolowsky lets the priest stand up, walk towards Seagal, and Seagal's come here, I need to tell you something. Get out of here. And then the priest just walks out of the church. And it's
that easy to depose the Pope.
Yeah. So it's just Seagal and the Family Guy killer. And he's the Family Guy killer is I'm going to kill you. And then puts a gun to his head. He's I'm going to kill myself. And Seagal's don't make me do this. So in the movie, Seagal does shoot him. And there's a squib. And we see he shoots him dead in the heart. Blood bursts out of his chest. So prior to the scene, Steven Seagal does approach Tobolowsky. And he's doesn't know what to make of it. And he's Steven, what do you think of this scene? And he says, he was well, Steven, it's a very intense scene, you know, but like I think we can do it, you know, like it's going to require like, but I think I got it. And he's like, what do you think about me not killing you in this scene? And what Tobolowsky does is genius, because then he said, Steven, and Steven he starts talking to him about like, we're only making society more sick with all this violence in movies and all this killing. I don't like what we're doing to our society with these movies. And then Tobolowsky does like a brilliant mental aikido on Steven Seagal, because he's like, Steven, I hear what you're saying and I totally agree with you. I think there is too much killing in movies, and like I agree with your take on this scene. However, from my character's perspective, he is a broken person. He's like, you know, he's psychologically damaged. He can't stop killing people, but he wants to. So in every respect, I think you're correct, except for this exception. I think if you kill my character in this scene, you'll be doing him a favor, and you're starting the cycle of reincarnation that will give him a new life, a new body, a new perspective on life. And it worked.
Speech check 100.
Tobolowsky be president?
Yeah,
like I want this guy negotiating everything. He would get the House to like unanimously pass like the nationalization of the power grid in healthcare.
The story isn't quite done yet, because like Seagal, like he aikidos Seagal into doing the scene as written and killing him. And there's like a squib scene. He gets shot in the chest. Blood shoots out of it. Weeks later, the director comes back to Tobolowsky. And keep in mind, this was his only scene. And he comes back to him and he says, Steven, we got to have you come back and do some ADR work so that your character can have dialogue making it clear that he's not dead and Steven Seagal hasn't killed him. And he was just like...
Because Steven Seagal kept ad-libbing when they were filming, saying,
"Yeah,
I'm sure glad I didn't kill that guy in the church."
yes. So now they have film that they can't use because his character Steven Seagal kept referencing that guy I didn't kill, which is like important to the movie that he did kill him. So they get him to come back to do ADR, and he's like, "Wait a second, we saw him get shot in the heart," and he said, "Like I don't know what I'm going to say." So he said he just recorded a line of dialogue where he goes, "Why didn't you kill me? I want to be dead.
Finish me off.
Finish me off." And then he said Keenan Ivory Wayans was with him doing this, and Keenan Ivory Wayans looks at him and he goes, "Now we are in the realm of high comedy." Which I thought was great.
That is a very good
Oh my god!
line, but it's like, what type of movies does Steven Seagal think he would do if there's like, if you just took violent, like, would Steven Seagal be in like a movie like The Worst Person in the World?
Noah Baumbach
like,
movie.
Yeah.
See, I like to think that he's like,
my motherfucking parents are getting divorced.
See, I
think I'm afraid of intimacy because I'm afraid of the part that hurts the most.
My heart isn't just ain't open to love yet, sucker. I like, in my mind, I think he's like, instead of killing people, what if I just shoot them in the spine, put their ass in a wheelchair? Imagine how crazy this movie would be if that was the case. It's like,
they call him the crippling man.
They say that people in wheelchairs were animals that offended the great Buddha.
So after that, like the Family Guy killer has been taken care of, but like they still think that prior to killing him, prior to being killed, the Family Guy killer does say that the victims that they're investigating were not his handiwork. Someone else was called to do that. But given the fact that one of the victims is Steven Seagal's ex-wife and his fingerprints were at the murder scene, they're like, could you come in? Because Internal Affairs does want to talk to you about this case.
yeah.
We did an autopsy on your wife, and this is, look, I'm really sorry to tell you, the last thing she saw was a glimmer.
It was recorded in her corneas. We got the glimmer on the glimmer graph.
Like, look, we know that you're not the only guy who glimmers, but we have to talk to you. It's policy.
So, when we were discussing doing this movie, I said that I don't remember much from it, except for one scene which sticks out in my head some 30 years later. And it's the polygraph scene, and I don't know why.
Oh my god!
But they sit down Seagal and they strap him up to a polygraph, and he's doing his Tibetan prayer beads, which they obviously wouldn't let you do if it was an actual polygraph examination. But you know how in polygraphs they ask you 2 baseline questions, and they say, "I'm going to ask you 2 questions and answer yes to both of them." And like one is like, "Is your name Lieutenant Jack Cole?" Yes. And then the next question is, "Have you ever climbed Mount Everest?" And he says, "Yes." But the needle doesn't jump, and it's never explained. But I just always stuck in my head that like, wow, this guy's so cool. Like he answers truthfully to the baseline questions in a lie detector examination.
It's
like
literally Mr. Show.
He actually did climb Mount Everest. Yeah,
yeah, it's a Mr. Show sketch. It's literally a Mr. Show sketch.
So understandably, he is suspended from the case for obvious reasons. Because like at one point in the polygraph examination, they're like, "Have you ever killed anyone?" And he's like, "Yes." And then they say, "Have you ever killed anyone outside your duties as a law enforcement agent?" And then he just gets up and he's like, "This examination's over. I'm done with this. Here's my answer." And they're like, they're like, "You have to answer the question." And he's like, "Do I? Do I?"
He says no, because what actually gets said is the guy's like, "It's a yes or no question, Jack," and he's like, "Is it?" It's
is
like,
it?
Yes.
Yeah, is it?
Yes.
This is actually a landmark civil discrimination case. If the LAPD was found to be violating Steven Seagal's religion of like made up Pan-Asian bullshit by asking him if events can definitely have or have not happened.
So he begins to freelance on the case, and you know, like the details going on forward don't really matter. The Russian mafia is involved, but like, okay, then there's a scene where like he's off the case, but Keenen Ivory Wayans is like they're like he's still on the case, and he meets up with Keenen Ivory Wayans in a movie theater where he's watching Casablanca and crying in the theater. And there was a moment earlier in this movie where like he makes reference to like it's at the Chinese medicine store. Like they're watching a movie on TV and Keenen Ivory Wayans says that one's a real tearjerker, and then he's like, "Not like I cry in movies or anything like that." And then Steven Seagal's like, "Sometimes it's good to cry. You need to let your emotions out of you." And then like what I mean is like, and then in the next scene he sees his ex-wife murdered and just sort of like grimaces and walks home, like doesn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
So they're going to investigate the case on their own after seeing Casablanca. We then learned that Bob Gunton, the father of the school shooting suicidal kid earlier in the movie, and Brian Cox, his former CIA handler, are in cahoots together, and they're working to smuggle Russian chemical weapons into America and sell them to Serbian terrorists.
Yeah, but before I really just want to mention something about the Casablanca scene is that there's an inscrutable moment in this where Keenen Ivory Wayans is like, "Have you seen Casablanca?" Yeah. And Steven Seagal's like, "You're asking me if I've ever seen Casablanca? How would you dare ask me a question like, have you seen Casablanca?" And it's unclear, like it makes no sense.
In the scene, is he saying, "How could you ask me if I've ever seen the classic film Casablanca? It's one of the highlights of American cinema. Of course I've seen Casablanca." Or he's saying, "How could you ask me if I've seen Casablanca? I'm a cool Asian guy. We don't watch pussy shit like that."
Yeah,
but because of his deadpan, like just flat delivery, it's impossible to discern how you're supposed to interpret his response.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like that the joke in the script saw a glimmer right before
and also,
he read that line.
I don't know if you noticed this, but like when he meets Keenen in the theater and like shows up behind him, be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" It's at the very end of the movie where he's like reading the note and like the rain is coming down on it and it's like, "My love, I can never see you again. Like I have to leave." Like the end of the movie. Yeah. They walk out of the theater and then he's like, "You're asking me if I've seen Casablanca? Casablanca, the movie? Asking me if I've seen it? Casablanca? Have I seen it?" And then he's like, "No." And then Keenen Ivory Wayans is like, "All right, cool. I'm going to go catch the rest of the movie." It's like the movie's over. Yeah. There was like 5 minutes left in it when you walked out of the theater.
It's also like, it's such a weird joke because it's like, it's predicated on the idea that it's like, oh yeah, Casablanca, that chick flick. Like it's like Casablanca is the same thing as How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yeah, the way I read it is like he in the script it's supposed to be like, you're asking me if I've ever seen Casablanca. Well, how dare you? Why would you ask me? And like the joke is that he hasn't, but he's embarrassed that he hasn't. So he's like, that's how I was reading it, but like instead he delivers it like, how dare you ask me such a question?
So then Brian Cox is like the big bad of the movie is like, basically we have too many loose ends on our Russian-Serbian chemical weapons deal. So Bob Gunton, you have to kill your stepson. He knows too much. And then it's revealed that the stepson told his therapist that his father was doing a deal for Russian chemical weapons, and his therapist was Steven Seagal's ex-wife husband, and that's why they were killed. And then now they have to kill Keenan. They got to kill Seagal, and they got to kill the stepson. And they try to kill Keenan Ivory Wayans by sending one guy to his apartment to kill him with a knife. That doesn't work, but the whole apartment burns down. And Steven Seagal is arrested by internal affairs officers at his house with his current wife and his mourning children, who we don't see or hear from ever again. But they're actually Russian mafia guys, and he beats them up in the car.
There's something about the internal affairs officers phrenologically. They're a little bit off.
Yeah, he says some Russian bullshit to them, and they go, "Da! Oh wait, fuck!" And then like stick a gun in his face, which is like, why didn't you just do that at the start?
Yeah.
Like the moment he got into the car. Yeah, I love the reason that they killed Steven Seagal's ex-wife in this movie is like if that's enough to just like annihilate a family, thereby drawing so much more attention to it, that's a loose enough connection that you would probably have to kill like every person on Earth at that point.
Then they kidnap Brian Cox. They rough him up. This is where he's dressed like Colonel Sanders, and like after the fact that we learned that he's Southern. I'm sure that was probably Steven Seagal ad-libbing, and they were like, "Quick costume! What's the most Southern-looking tie you have for Brian Cox?"
Oh man, you know that he was reading about the Civil War the night before that scene.
Yeah.
It's like two equally right sides in conflict. He doesn't understand it. He's like,
the saddest thing, they were both right and they were both wrong.
He thought Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis were actually brothers. It's a shame when family has to kill each other. And then like they set up all the bad guys because like Bob Gunton is like, okay, the Russian Serbian chemical weapons deal is going down at some like Fleabag motel in downtown Los Angeles. They contrive it so that they record Bob Gunton on the phone, double crossing his head of security, who we saw earlier in the movie, who did all the murders. They record him on the phone. They play the recording to the security guy so that everyone is just basically kind of set up for a double cross. And like, I don't know, like I don't know how to talk about the climax of this movie, other than to say no Russians or chemical weapons ever appear.
Yes. And the funny thing is, when they're setting up like the meeting, it's like in a normal movie that would take place in like an interrogation room, you know, where they record him saying that he's going to make a deal or something. But I feel like the actors were just like, I don't want to come to set. I don't want to be in a room with Steven Seagal anymore. And they're just like, okay, we'll do it. He calls you on the phone, like literally, like he's calling his wife and saying, I'm picking up some dry cleaning on the way home. Like it's so casual the way that they conclude the case.
Do you think that like the Russians and Serbians never showing up was like actually a very smart commentary about how the national security state like invents threats?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Right.
Yeah.
We get Seagal's philosophizing about how Persian tacticians invented the game of chess so that old warriors would know to be patient before engaging in combat. Then they just run into a room with 10 guys pointing guns at each other.
He fucks up the anecdote. There was an old warrior and a young warrior in ancient Persia. Before the Battle of Thermopylae, they slew 300 Spartans. the young warrior says, "We should go fuck those Spartans."
And that's
and
why.
and the old warrior says, "No, we should walk down the hill and fuck them all."
And so that's why my Chinese ass only be moving diagonally.
They call me the bishop. I play with 2 kings, no queens. Because it's a man's game. Have you ever played 2 king chess?
And then we get this great bit of like tough guy dialogue at the end of the movie where like for some reason Brian Cox lives at the end of this movie. They shoot him in the hand and foot, but then they let him hobble off to a hospital. But like the real bad guys are Bob Gunton and Bob Gunton's head of security, because like they were the ones doing the killings, and Brian Cox was just, he put them in touch with the Russians and the Serbians, and he wants a cut of the deal to get rich.
That's like the opposite of the Eichmann defense. I was just giving orders.
Yeah, man.
I love Steven Seagal's moral universe is so good.
It's so cool. I love Brian Cox is like, yeah, we got to kill your son. And the guy's like, okay, I guess if we have to. And then he tells Steven Seagal he's going to kill his son. Be careful now.
The climactic fight is between Steven Seagal and Bob Gunton's head of security. And like they're beating, like he's beating him up. And then, or like right before the fight starts, Steven Seagal says to him, he says, you probably woke up happy this morning. You probably feel pretty happy when you look at yourself in the mirror. You like what you see. See, that disturbs me. And I'm going to make it my responsibility to make sure you never look in a mirror again. I just like, I love that dialogue. Like,
he grows fangs and bites him in the neck.
I hereby declare you're a vampire. Adios, Dracula. That is such a fun. You know that like someone as an acquaintance of someone Steven Seagal knew, like their dad died or something, and he was like, "That's so sad. He's never gonna look in the mirror ever again." He looked in the mirror for the last time and he didn't know it was his motherfucking last. He probably didn't even think about it. He said, "I'm gonna do this tomorrow." Motherfucker, there ain't no tomorrow.
the famous Seagal line about "I'm gonna snatch every motherfucking birthday" I think he stole that from Andie MacDowell in Shortcuts when she's screaming at Lyle Lovett and she goes, "There is no birthday. There will not be any more fucking birthdays." Because her son just died tragically. It's quite a bit more emotionally affecting in that movie.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think they're on par. I think they're pretty on par.
And like the bad guy is just like, "Yeah, I woke up happy and I'm gonna go to bed happy because you'll be dead." And then Steven Seagal
tomorrow's Christmas.
Seagal kicks him through a window, and then like his head is impaled on like an iron gatework below. And then
Which
he says,
is inside another building. There's a lot of buildings inside buildings in this movie. Like
it's sort of a Russian nesting doll of buildings in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he says, "You don't look like you're going to be waking up happy now," as the guy's like, head is impaled on a spike or something. And then basically the movie ends. There are no Russians. The chemical weapons are still at large. They're still just out there. But they solved, like, the point is they solved the Family Guy killings by killing and then not killing Stephen Tobolowsky. That part got edited out of the final cut of the movie. And they killed the fake. They stopped the fake Family Guy killings, which are being done to cover up a high school student's knowledge of a chemical weapons deal.
Again, it's like, how does this not draw 8 billion times more attention to this chemicals deal that like no one gives a fuck about? Like no one can. They were selling like Novichok 6 to like, I guess, really aggressive Titoists at a swap meet in Los Angeles, and no one cared until they were like, I think that my dentist receptionist knows that my son knows about the deal. We should just blow up the entire building. We should hijack a plane and fly it into the building where my dentist works.
My favorite part, though, at the very end, is that Keenen Ivory Wayans is like, he's like getting put into an ambulance, and he looks at Steven Seagal and he says, "Look, I don't like you. You're weird. You're scary. Please never talk to me again. And you can tell from his eyes that he means it. And Steven Seagal's like nodding, and he's like, I'll see you tomorrow, kid. And he's like, no, I'm being serious. Please don't visit me in the hospital. And he's like, all right, I'll bring flowers. It's like, and it's like a really dark ending because, you know, Keenan Ivory Wayans is going to be plagued by this horrible man for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I really felt so bad for Keenan Ivory Wayans this entire movie. That scene again, because that is like a Kafka-esque horror that you were followed around by Steven Seagal for the rest of your life. But like, I was thinking about the scenes where it's like, we alluded to it, but the scene that actually they repeat this in tons of Seagal movies where his erstwhile partner is like, they get a file on him from like, you know, their contact in the department of like badass assassins. And they pull his file. And he's complaining to the chief of police or like his captain or whatever. And he's going, I can't work with this guy. He just beat up 20 guys. He speaks Chinese. He knows when people are Russian. And it's like Keenan Ivory Wayans knows how fucking stupid that is.
Yeah.
But he was trying his hardest just to sell that. Every ounce of his being. He should be given like some form of reparations for being in this movie.
yeah, absolutely, or like a Medal of Honor or something like that for fucking just giving it his best in this movie. But man, it's just there's nothing going on for him to do. It's just him trying to be like provide some comic relief to like the fattest man on the planet.
Yeah. The man with the least sense of humor in the world, maybe. Yeah. He has to riff with him.
He had to pretend that, like, if Steven Seagal walked into, like, South Central LA, any neighborhood in South Central LA, like, dressed like that in 1995, he wouldn't be, like, the most laughed at and mocked man in human history.
This fella's Chinese. He's in a movie theater.
I think that does it for the Glimmerman. The only other note that I didn't get to in this movie is we get a cameo from another American character actor, Peter Jason, who's another denizen of the town of Deadwood. You may remember him as Con Stapleton, one of Cy Tolliver's flunkies.
Oh man, Deadwood is character actor Valhalla.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, it's the absolute best.
That's what Kash Patel was talking about.
Timothy OnlyFans.
Yeah,
John Hawkes. Oh God.
Oh my God.
Well, actually,
John Hawkes should play Pete Hegseth in a movie.
Oh, that's good.
I could maybe see that. Ian McShane, Powers Booth. I'm just gonna list all the actors from Deadwood now.
Yeah. But Powers Booth, we should clone him.
Oh my God, he's the best. He's the best actor.
Just such a great like evil face.
Oh God, the way like the venom in which he imbues every word he says.
Yeah,
the scene where he talks about Joni and he's like, "You never seen a woman till you seen one with flies in her eyes." It's just so gross, so sinister.
They do not make sleazeballs like that anymore.
Oh man,
no, absolutely not.
I should say actually, we talked about a movie today, but before we end this episode, I would like to give a plug. Because Hessa, Felix, and I were just in a movie that I saw this weekend. And I would like to just use this opportunity now to say, like, first and foremost, rent the 1996 Steven Seagal movie, The Glimmerman, directed by John Gray. And then, once you've done that, if you have the opportunity to see Castration Movie Anthology Part 2, Best of Both Worlds, directed by Louise Weird and starring Lex Walton among a really amazing cast in this movie. But included in the cast are Hessa, Felix, and myself. This is, I'm just like, Hessa, have you seen the movie yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, Hessa, I'm going to tell you, you're amazing in the movie.
Oh,
Hessa plays a cult leader, and she is extremely funny, but also very sinister. And you bring a Powers Booth style malevolence to this movie.
Oh, beautiful! Oh my gosh!
Yeah, look, this is it is a extremely funny, extremely upsetting, and also extremely long movie. Like sitting through this movie, it is something of a test of endurance. But I would like to say I could not be more proud to be involved in the movie. Felix, the scene that we're in got big laughs. And a little pull quote here from Vera Drew, the People's Joker, let me know that she was, quote, dying with laughter during our scene. So I can report...
Will killed that scene. He was, he was Keenan Ivory Wayans. I was Seagal.
But no, seriously, Castration Movie Anthology Part 2, Best of Both Worlds. If you get a chance to see it in theater or rent it, it is an experience. I will reiterate again, it is extremely funny, but also extremely upsetting. And it features some incredible performances, including ourselves here. But I would just like to say, like, congratulations to Louise Weird, because pulling off what she does in this movie is kind of unbelievable to me. I don't quite know how to describe it, but like it is a very challenging work of art that is a high wire act that like really does like the movie's 5 hours long. Okay, it's 5 hours.
This is part
long.
2. Part 1 is 4 hours long.
You do not need to see part 1 to understand part 2, but it is a like I can only describe it as a Dante-esque nightmare and odyssey through the night and nighttime streets of New York City. I like I said, I don't want to give too much away about the movie, but other than to say you must see it to support Hessa, Felix, myself, and Movie Mindset.
You must see it.
It is a it is a movie that unlike almost anything else I would compare it to Inland Empire and Mike Leigh's Naked. So if you're a fan of Movie Mindset, I think if you are an extreme movie sicko or just otherwise a sick person, you will enjoy this movie. It is a real tour de force. It is kind of indescribable, but like it has to be seen. It demands to be seen. And I would just like to thank Louise and everyone involved in that movie for asking Felix Hessa and myself to be a part of it. And I could not be more proud of how it turned out.
We had such a great time making our scene, and I didn't even know it had just come out, but it is. I'm probably going to watch it after this. I mean, sight unseen, I was just going to say that, like, long, uncomfortable, and upsetting, that's like my trifecta for movies. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. I'm like, this movie is extremely long, extremely uncomfortable, and extremely upsetting. So, and once again, thanks to Ivy Walk and Lex Walton, who we shared that scene with. It was really, really fun to do, and I'm really excited for you guys to see us in the movie. Or if you just want to skip to our scene, it comes at around the 3.5 hour mark of the movie.
I love it. Like, Luis has the same. He has the same thing that like Hideo Kojima has, where when he was making Metal Gear Solid 2, he was like, I think that the final part of the game should be a 4-hour-long Mexican standoff where you can't take your hands off the controller. And Konami had to be like, we're going to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
But like, it's only the greats have ideas like that. Like a true great is like, they just have a unique vision that they want to pull off in spite of, or maybe because it will torment some members of the audience. So it is the sign of a true artist.
Oh, and Felix, the first image you see in this movie is the opening credits, and it's Donald Trump speaking on TV, filmed on very grainy video. And the first thing we see in the movie is Donald Trump's face and then your name. It says Felix Biederman because they did the cast alphabetically. Your name is the first one in the credits. At the beginning of a 5-hour movie, the name Felix Biederman is the first thing you see.
I am so proud of that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, my God.
All right. Once again, see Castration Movie Part 2 to see Felix and I's film debut. And Hessa's a really phenomenally evil turn as a cult leader. It's the role you were born to play, Hessa.
Thank you.
Conflict is not abuse.
Yeah, conflict is not abuse.
You'll get it when you see the movie.
Yeah.
All right. That does it for today's episode, everybody. Till next time, bye-bye.